All right, everybody, it's 9:30. It's Tuesday morning. My name is Eric Hayden. I'm with the Weather Service out of Newport, Morehead City, North Carolina. We're going to start our webinar for Dorian. Also joined on the call is Eric Seymour. He works up at the Wakefield, Virginia office, and he's going to cover the northeast part of North Carolina here in a couple moments. I'm going to go ahead and mute the background noise so we don't have any issues with that. We will unmute the lines when Eric's talking, and then we'll do the same here coming up.
The conference is now in silent mode.
Hurricane Center, I believe it is. Wants to coordinate watches and when you want. You worry about that?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I don't think you want.
Yeah, I'm doing a briefing. All right, everybody, we're just about to get started. Everybody should be able to see the Hurricane Center forecast. That has not really changed too much from the last couple of days. We are starting to see the turn northward with Dorian, and we expect the storm to grow in size in terms of the wind field itself, and then also rapidly move off to the northwest and eventually northeast. So somewhere off the coastline of South Carolina early Thursday morning, and then up toward eastern North Carolina early Friday morning. So that has largely unchanged. One thing we continue to emphasize with any forecast really for hurricanes, not to focus too much on the exact track. I want to point you down to where the storm is now. That wind field, notice, is hitting the east coast of Florida. That's outside the cone. Keep in mind, the cone only shows you the most likely path for just the center of the storm. It does not show who will be impacted or who will not be impacted. So just keep that in mind, even with the track just off the coast in terms of the center itself. We are still seeing increasing chances that will be impacted here across eastern North Carolina. I'm going to jump back into our briefing. That was the latest update as of 8 a.m., so I wanted to make sure that we had the current track and all that for you to see. This is the briefing that we sent out just, I guess, about an hour and a half ago. This is should be in your email, so you should have this. Not a lot of changes with this. Prolonged period of heavy rain expected. Biggest concern with rain so far is flash flooding. So we're not anticipating major issues with rivers, but we hope to have more information with that as we get into the afternoon. But a lot of our area has been in a drought, a recent drought for the last couple of months. So that will allow us to take on a lot of water. So a little bit more concern with rainfall rate with regards to flash flooding than river flooding. But again, we'll have more specifics later today on that. As far as surge goes, concern with potential for life-threatening surge on that. And also the wind threat, especially along the coastline itself. Our threat level graphic has not changed. Still the highest threat would be from rainfall and flooding itself. Still a moderate threat for surge and winds, and a lower threat for tornadoes. Based on the current track, that would not favor tornadoes in our area, but you can't rule it out, especially some of those outer bands coming on shore, especially coastal areas, even as early as Wednesday. The tropical storm force wind speed probabilities have increased just a little bit, and if you look really, really carefully, especially along the coast, it is now likely that red area is above 70%, and that darker shading of red just clips the Crystal Coast, so places like Emerald Isle and then over toward Cape Hatteras, that would be above 80% itself. Farther inland, want to stress that, hey, don't think because you're inland that you're not going to be impacted by this. You still have between a 40 and 60% chance for tropical storm force winds. So again, as Dorian moves northward, that wind field is expected to expand. So don't think just because the track is currently off the coast that you won't be impacted. We do expect tropical storm force winds over a good chunk of our forecast area. 50-knot wind speed probabilities for our military partners. This has increased, again remaining highest along the coast, and then we expect these values to go up as we get closer to the arrival time itself. Hurricane force winds are still primarily focused along the immediate coast in terms of the highest threat, but you will see that we're above 30% now for areas from Cape Hatteras, or for Cape Lookout up toward Cape Hatteras. With any of these probability maps, what we want to focus in on is the trend, and the trend for the sustained tropical storm force winds, 50-knot, and hurricane force have all gone up, and they all remain the highest along the coast. So we really focus on the trend itself and those continue to increase, especially near the coast itself. This has not changed, and this is what our messaging continues to be. This is a reasonable worst-case scenario of when tropical storm force winds could arrive. I'm still thinking sometime late Wednesday night, perhaps not until Thursday morning up toward the Outer Banks. This is when we're telling folks that they should complete their preparations tomorrow, Wednesday, because even in a worst-case scenario, they will be done and ready to go for the storm. It is still most likely, however, that the tropical storm force winds would arrive sometime during the day Thursday, spreading from southwest to northeast, so down toward Onslow County, Carteret, perhaps as early as first thing Thursday morning, and then a little bit later in the day as we head up toward northeastern North Carolina, including the northern part of the Outer Banks. That is when they were most likely to arrive. Storm total rainfall, this has not changed. We could start to see some outer bands and just some general rain getting in here Wednesday, but the peak still looks to be Thursday into Friday in terms of the very heaviest of the rain. These amounts have not changed in terms of 5 to 10 inches generally across our area, locally up to 15. A couple things to look at this with this forecast. The concern here is the rainfall rate, so that could produce some issues with flash flooding. Again, we're very dry, so hopefully that will alleviate major concerns with river flooding. The other thing I want to point out is we've seen this before with past storms. Notice the western edge drops off very sharply. In reality, that may bump a little bit farther west, could shift a little bit farther east. So don't take this map black and white, I'm in a threat for heavy rain or I'm out of it. Anywhere in eastern North Carolina is under the threat for heavy rain. So please keep that in mind. Even if you don't see some of the higher totals or the highest totals, I know the focus is now the coast, those rainfall rates could lead to some issues with water, especially Thursday into Friday itself. Thank you so much for your messaging on rip currents. I know we're past the Labor Day holiday, but we still have a lot of folks down our way with the weather usually being nice in September outside of storms like this. So again, still seeing a high risk for rip currents this week, and we appreciate that messaging. So a couple key takeaways. Confidence remains high that we're going to see the event. Still some track-dependent impacts that are a little uncertain. Hopefully we'll iron those out here over the next 24 hours, but the main threats would be heavy rain and storm surge, and then wind as well, especially along the immediate